Have you ever caught yourself pausing before making a decision because a little voice inside whispered, "But what will they think?" Maybe it was something small, like wearing an outfit that felt a little too bold. Or maybe it was something big, like choosing a career path your parents never imagined for you. That voice, that invisible pressure, can feel heavier than a backpack full of bricks, and the truth is, we've all carried it at some point. We live in a world where family expectations, cultural traditions, and society's version of success are everywhere, woven into conversations, family dinners, social media feeds, and even the silent comparisons we make when scrolling through other people's highlight reels. It's not always spoken outright, but the message is loud and clear: be this, do that, achieve this, look like that. And if you don't, you risk being seen as less, or worse, disappointing the people closest to you. But here's the thing, living your life on someone else's terms is like running a race where the finish line keeps moving. No matter how fast you go, you'll never feel like you've arrived. And the cost? It's your peace, your authenticity, your sense of self. That's why this conversation is so important. Because learning how to navigate these pressures without losing yourself isn't just about being brave, it's about reclaiming your right to live a life that actually feels like yours. So let's start with one of the first truths we have to accept: pressure is inevitable. It doesn't matter where you live, what your family background is, or how independent you think you are, at some point, people are going to have opinions about your choices. And honestly, sometimes those opinions come from love. A parent might push you toward a stable career not because they want to suffocate your dreams, but because they're scared of seeing you struggle. A friend might warn you against taking risks because they wouldn't dare to themselves. Pressure isn't always about control, often it's about fear. Understanding that helps us take it less personally. But here's where things get tricky. Just because someone's pressure comes from love or fear doesn't mean it's right for you. If you bend too much to make everyone else comfortable, you end up shrinking yourself until there's barely anything left. And you deserve more than that. So the first step is to really sit with this question: what do I actually want? Not what do my parents want for me, not what would make me look successful online, but what do I want? It sounds simple, but it's not. Because often, we've been so conditioned by expectations that we've lost touch with our own desires. A helpful way to reconnect with yourself is to imagine a world where no one was watching, where no one had a single opinion about you. What choices would you make then? Would you still be in the same job? Would you still be pursuing the same degree? Would you still be in the same relationship or dressing the same way? That thought experiment can be uncomfortable, but it's revealing. Sometimes, it's the first time in years you'll hear your own voice again. Once you start tuning into what you want, the next challenge is learning to hold your ground. And this doesn't always mean fighting with your family or rejecting your culture. It means practicing the art of boundaries. Think of boundaries as invisible fences that protect your mental and emotional space. You don't set them to push people out, you set them to protect what matters inside. For example, if your relatives constantly pressure you about marriage or career choices, a boundary might look like gently saying, "I appreciate your concern, but I'm figuring this out in my own way." You're not dismissing their care, but you're making it clear that your path belongs to you. And here's the empowering part: boundaries often earn respect over time. At first, people might push back, they're used to you bending. But when you consistently and calmly show that you're serious about your choices, most people adjust. It's like training others how to treat you, and the more consistent you are, the easier it becomes. Of course, some of you might be thinking, that sounds good, but my situation is different. In my family, saying no feels impossible. And I hear you. In many cultures, family isn't just family, it's everything. Expectations aren't just personal, they're generational. It can feel like your decisions don't belong only to you, but to everyone who came before you. In those cases, it helps to remember that honoring your roots doesn't mean erasing yourself. You can respect your culture, love your family, and still create space to be authentically you. It doesn't have to be either or, it can be both and. Think about it this way: when you live authentically, you're not dishonoring your family, you're expanding what's possible for them. You're showing your siblings, your cousins, maybe even your parents, that there are more ways to live than the ones they were handed. Your courage becomes a blueprint. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for your family is to break the cycle of fear that kept them small. But to do that, you need something powerful on your side: confidence. Not the kind that shows up as loud bravado or flashy Instagram posts, but the quiet, steady kind that whispers, "I know who I am, even if others don't approve." Confidence doesn't mean you'll never feel doubt, it means you've decided not to let doubt drive the car. And here's the secret: confidence is built, not born. Every time you make a choice that honors you, no matter how small, you're laying a brick. Over time, those bricks become a foundation so strong that other people's opinions can't shake it. Now that we've begun to uncover the roots of pressure and started exploring how to reconnect with what you truly want, it's time to go even deeper into how to build that unshakable confidence step by step, so you can keep moving forward even when the noise around you gets loud. You know what's wild? The way pressure doesn't always sound like pressure. Sometimes it comes wrapped up in love. Like when your parents say, "We just want what's best for you." Or when relatives ask, "So, when are you finally settling down?" On the surface, it feels like care, but underneath, it's carrying a whole load of expectation. And if you're not careful, that expectation starts to sound louder than your own voice. It's like being in a room full of people where everyone's talking at once. You can't even hear your own thoughts anymore. That's why one of the most powerful things you can do is learn how to pause before reacting. When someone tells you what they think you should do, your instinct might be to defend yourself, argue, or even cave in. But here's the thing: you don't owe anyone an immediate response. You don't have to decide your future in the middle of a family dinner or explain your life choices in the comment section of your own story. Pausing gives you space to breathe, to detach, and to check in with yourself. It's like hitting the mute button for a second so you can actually hear your own voice again. And during that pause, you can ask yourself one simple but powerful question: if nobody had an opinion about this, what would I choose? Imagine for a moment that there was no chorus of voices telling you what's acceptable or respectable or realistic. Imagine it was just you, alone with your decision. What would you pick? That question has a way of cutting through the noise, because it forces you to strip away the layers of fear and duty and expectation and get to the raw truth of what you actually want. But of course, knowing what you want doesn't always make it easy to act on it. Because the fear of disappointing others is real. For a lot of us, especially in cultures where family approval carries so much weight, saying no can feel like betrayal. You might worry they'll think you're ungrateful, selfish, or rebellious. That's where reframing comes in. What if instead of seeing your choices as rejection of your family or society, you started seeing them as alignment with your truest self? Because here's the truth: when you live out of alignment, when you keep twisting yourself into shapes that please others but drain you, resentment builds. You start carrying around this heavy backpack of what-ifs and should-haves. And over time, that eats away at you more than any initial disappointment ever could. Think about it like this: imagine you're on a long road trip, and everyone around you insists you take a detour that adds 5 hours to your drive. You might go along to keep the peace, but the whole time, you're frustrated, tired, and questioning why you didn't just stick to your route. Living for other people's approval feels exactly like that. It drains you, delays you, and sometimes even derails you. Now, here's the part most people overlook. Standing your ground doesn't have to be loud, dramatic, or confrontational. You don't always need a fiery speech or a grand declaration of independence. Sometimes, it's as simple as calmly repeating your boundary until it sticks. If someone asks, "Why don't you have a real job yet?" you don't need to launch into a full defense of your dreams. You can say, "I'm happy with what I'm doing right now." And if they push again, you repeat, "I'm happy with what I'm doing right now." Notice how that takes the energy out of the conflict? You're not fighting them, but you're also not surrendering. You're standing rooted. This leads into something deeper: self-trust. Because every time you stick to your boundary, no matter how small, you're proving to yourself that your voice matters. And the more you do it, the stronger that inner trust becomes. Confidence isn't built in giant leaps, it's built in tiny moments when you chose you over what everyone else wanted. It's the small no's that make the big yes to yourself possible. And here's another perspective shift: people will always have opinions. That's just how humans are wired. But opinions aren't facts, and they definitely aren't destiny. Think of them like graffiti on a wall you're walking past. Some of it might be interesting, some of it might be ugly, but none of it changes the path you're on unless you stop and let it. Too often, we hand other people the pen and let them scribble all over our story. But what would happen if you started writing your own narrative in bold letters, unafraid of the side comments? Of course, I'm not saying this is easy. It takes practice, and it takes courage. But the beautiful thing is, courage is built in motion. You don't wake up fearless one day, you become brave by doing the thing while your hands are shaking. That's how you learn, over time, that you won't break just because someone disapproves of you. And here's something that might surprise you. Often, when you start living authentically, yes, some people will be disappointed or confused at first. But in the long run, you also become an example. You give silent permission for others to question, to dream, to choose differently. Your courage creates space for theirs. Imagine your younger cousin watching you choose a path nobody expected, and suddenly, they believe maybe they can do it too. That ripple effect is powerful. Which brings us to a key realization: authenticity is not selfish. It's service. Because when you show up as who you really are, unapologetically, you bring your best energy, your best creativity, your best love into the world. And that's something no one can do on your behalf. Here's where it all comes together. When we strip it down, the real battle isn't just against family expectations or society's standards, it's against the voice inside us that says, maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not enough. That inner critic is often louder than any parent, teacher, or stranger on the internet. And it's sneaky, because it borrows their words. It echoes with phrases you've heard 1,000 times. Be realistic, don't disappoint us, that's not how it's done. But here's the truth: those voices may have shaped you, but they don't get to define you. So, what do you do with that inner critic? You don't silence it with force. You sit with it, you acknowledge it, and then you remind it of the facts. Facts like, you've survived 100% of your hardest days. Facts like, every choice you've made has taught you something. Facts like, you have the right to design a life that feels good to live, not just good to look at. Let's get practical for a moment. How do you actually put this into action when the pressure feels overwhelming? There are 3 steps you can carry with you. Pause before responding. We talked about this earlier, but it's worth repeating. Create space between their expectations and your decision. That pause is your power. Anchor in your why. When you know why you're choosing a certain path, you become unshakable. If your reason is rooted in your values, your growth, or your joy, then no amount of outside noise can uproot you. Write it down if you have to. Keep it in your notes app. That way, when doubt creeps in, you have a reminder of what's real. Practice small acts of authenticity. You don't need to change your whole life overnight. Start with one boundary, one no, one decision that reflects the real you. Over time, those small choices compound, and suddenly you realize you're living life on your terms. And here's something beautiful: the moment you start honoring your truth, life begins to shift. Yes, there will be challenges. Yes, there may be tears and tension. But there's also freedom. There's peace in waking up knowing you're walking your own path, not somebody else's script. And that peace? That's priceless. Now, I want you to imagine yourself 10 years from now. Picture 2 versions of you. Version 1, you did everything right. You pleased everyone. You followed the script. From the outside, your life looks perfect. But on the inside, you feel empty, like you missed something. Version 2, you took the risk. You said no when it mattered. You disappointed some people along the way, but you stayed true to yourself. And now, you look back not with regret, but with pride, because your life feels like yours. Which version do you want to meet? Here's the thing, the world doesn't need another copy of the perfect child or the model citizen. The world needs you. The raw, real, authentic version of you. Because that's where your unique light lives. And when you let that light shine, you don't just guide yourself, you light the way for others who are still trapped in the dark of expectations. So the next time you feel that wave of pressure, whether it's from family, society, or even your own inner critic, I want you to pause, breathe, and ask, if nobody had an opinion, what would I choose? Then, trust yourself enough to follow that answer. Because at the end of the day, people will always think something. But your life? Your life is too precious to be lived for what will they think. It's time to start living for what will you feel.